The stars were quiet. The human ship floated near a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was a peaceful mission, at least that's what the humans believed. Jake, a young space engineer, stood near the window of the outpost, watching. The alien sky, he was only 25, full of energy and had a kind heart. He didn't like war, but he believed in protecting those who couldn't fight. The planet was called Alaria. It was home to a small, peaceful alien race called the Alari. They were short with soft silver skin, big black eyes, and voices like wind chimes. They didn't use weapons or machines. They lived close to nature and had powers humans didn't understand. Most humans ignored them, thinking they were weak or strange. But Jake saw something else. He saw beauty in their songs, in their glowing forests, and in their peaceful way of life. One day, he met a little Alari girl. She was curious and followed him around. The outpost, her name was Leary. She was only 9 years old in human terms. She laughed a lot, asked many questions, and loved shiny tools. Jake found her funny and sweet. Every day, she would wait for him at the edge of the village. He would show her simple things like how a flashlight worked or how to fix a broken drone. She would clap her small hands and giggle. Jake started bringing her snacks from the human camp, sweet bars and juice packs. She called him Jakey, and he didn't mind. One afternoon, while sitting under the glowing trees, Leary asked, "A strange question. Do humans marry aliens?" Jake laughed, almost choking on his snack. "No, kiddo, not usually," he said, smiling. "Why not?" she asked, blinking her big eyes. Jake thought for a second, then grinned. "Well, maybe I'll marry you when you grow up. How about that?" Leary gasped, then burst out laughing. "You promise?" she said, holding out her pinky. Jake, still laughing, locked pinkies with her. "Sure, pinky promise," he said. It was a joke, just a silly moment Jake never thought she'd remember. But Leary smiled like it meant everything. A week later, everything changed. Strange ships entered Alaria's orbit. The peace mission turned into an emergency. The Alari were in danger. The unknown attackers were ruthless. Burning villages and capturing the weak, the human base was ordered to evacuate. Jake searched for Leary, but couldn't find her. The sky was red with fire. Explosions shook the ground. In the chaos, Jake saw Leary's house in flames. He ran toward it, coughing and shouting her name. Finally, he found her hiding behind a rock, crying. Her leg was hurt. Jake picked her up and ran back to the shuttle. They were the last to board, inside. The shuttle, Leary clung to him, shaking. "Don't go," she whispered. "I have to," Jake said. "Heartbreaking, but I'll come back, I promise," he lied. The shuttle left the burning sky behind. Jake watched Alaria grow smaller and smaller through the window. He didn't know if Leary survived after the emergency drop-off. The humans weren't allowed to return. The planet was blocked for safety reasons. Years passed, and Jake tried to forget, but he couldn't. He had dreams of the glowing trees, of Leary's laugh, of her big black eyes. He would wake up feeling empty. Jake grew older, stronger, and a little more tired. He worked on bigger missions, joined special fleets, and became respected. But he never told anyone about the promise, because it was just a joke, right? Then one day it happened. A strange ship entered Earth's orbit without warning. It was elegant and smooth, shaped like a silver flame. It didn't answer Earth's calls. It only sent one message, a name. Jake's security called him in, confused. Jake stood in the control room watching the alien ship land. The door opened slowly, and a tall figure stepped out. She was not human, but she was beautiful. Silver skin, glowing tattoos on her arms, and long white hair that flowed like water. Eyes. Those same black eyes looked right at Jake, and she smiled. "Jake," she said. Her voice soft but full of power. "You promised." Jake couldn't breathe. Was it Leary? No, it couldn't be. But the way she looked at him, the way she smiled, it was her. She had come back, and Jake realized the joke wasn't a joke to her. Cliffhanger ending. She stepped closer and said, "I came back, just like you said." Jake didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at the woman standing before him. She looked like Leary, but not like the child he once knew. This was someone else, taller, older, stronger, glowing with something powerful. The guards beside him raised their weapons. The alien woman raised her hand, and without touching anything. The guns flew from their hands. They hit the wall with a soft thud. No one was hurt, but everyone was afraid, except Jake. He stepped forward, heartbeat loud in his ears. "Who are you?" he asked, though part of him already knew. The woman tilted her head and smiled. "You called me Leary," she said. Her voice still had that wind chime sound, but now it carried weight, "and I never forgot you." Jake felt the room spinning. "How?" he whispered. "How are you here?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at the glass above them. Where the sky could be seen, "I waited," she said softly. "I trained. I learned. I grew. Just like you said I would." Jake didn't remember saying that, but he did remember. The joke. The pinky promise. The last time he saw her crying in his arms. Leary turned back to him, her eyes glowing faintly. "You left me in fire, but I survived," she said. "Your people said they'd return, but no one came." Jake felt shame burning in his chest. He wanted to say something. Anything but Leary raised her hand again. "I didn't come for revenge," she said. "I came for you." Gasps filled the room. One of the generals stepped forward. Speaking through a cum, "You can't take him. This is Earth's territory." Leary turned to him, calm and steady. "I'm not taking him," she said. "I'm asking him." She looked at Jake, and for a moment, time stopped. "I need you to come with me," she said. "There's something you must see." Jake didn't understand. What could she possibly want from him? Why now, after all these years? But he also knew deep inside that this moment was important. Bigger than Earth, bigger than him. "I'll go," he said finally. The room exploded with noise, protests, warnings, threats. Jake ignored them all. He followed Leary out of the building and into the alien ship. As the door closed behind him, silence wrapped around them. The ship's inside was like nothing he had seen. No buttons, no screens, just glowing shapes and soft humming. It moved without shaking, without noise, like it was alive. Leary led him to a quiet room with a wide window. The stars passed them like river lights. Jake stared outside, still stunned. He looked at her, finally speaking. "Why me?" Leary sat across from him, folding her hands. "You were kind when no one else was," she said. "You saved me when others ran. But more than that," she added, leaning in, "you changed something in me." Jake frowned. "I was just a guy doing his job," he said. She smiled. "No, you were the first human I trusted." She closed her eyes, and the window changed. It showed images, memories, maybe, of Leary's past. Her planet burning, her people fighting, her training. In a temple made of light, and always in the background, a tiny figure, Jake. Laughing under a tree, holding her hand, Jake watched in silence. It was beautiful and terrifying. Like a forgotten dream remembered too late. "What am I to you?" he asked finally. "A promise," she said. "A legend. Some say you're the reason I became who I am, but I say," she paused, "you're just Jake. The boy who joked about love." He looked down, heart heavy. "It wasn't supposed to be real," he said quietly. Leary reached out and touched his hand. "But it is," she said. "And now I need you to decide." Jake looked into her eyes. They were deep like the stars, full of memories and something ancient. He didn't know what decision she meant, but before he could ask, sudden alarm echoed through the ship. Red light pulsed from the walls. Leary stood quickly, her voice firm. "They found us." Jake jumped to his feet. "Who?" Leary looked back at him with a hard face. "The ones who fear you." Cliffhanger ending. She placed a glowing ring in his hand. "Put this on if you want to survive what comes next," she said. Then the walls around them shook as something massive approached. Jake felt the ship bend, not in sound or motion, but in feeling. The air grew heavier, like it remembered something old, something deep. Leary stood in front of him, calm, while the ship glowed brighter. The silver ring in his hand pulsed, warm and alive. "Put it on," she said again, voice sharp but worried. Jake slid the ring onto his finger. And everything changed. For a moment, he wasn't in the ship anymore. He saw a forest made of crystal, a sky with 3 suns, million stars spinning like gears in a machine, then darkness and a whisper. He has returned, Jake gasped, falling to his knees. The ship faded back into focus, and Leary was beside him. You felt it, didn't you? She asked softly. Jake looked at her with wide eyes. What was that? She helped him up. A memory locked in your blood, she said. Your touch opened it. Jake didn't understand. I'm not special, he said. I'm just a human. Leary shook her head slowly, not to them. Suddenly the ship stopped. No warning. No sound. Just stillness outside the window. A strange sight appeared, a dead star floating in black space. But around it rings of stone, glowing with ancient writing. At the center, a single spire, like a tower built from moonlight. This is the place, Leary said, her voice almost a whisper. Jake stared, confused. What is it? She turned to him, her face serious now. This is the place my people call the Hollow Memory. Only one with the mark can open it. Jake looked down at the ring on his finger. What mark? Leary didn't answer. She led him off the ship and onto a floating path that appeared beneath their feet. Each step glowed as if welcoming them. The spire grew taller as they approached. Strange symbols danced along its surface. Jake couldn't read them, but they felt familiar. When they reached the entrance, the wall opened on its own. Inside, the walls pulsed with blue light, like a living heart. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until they stood before a great circular door. Leary turned to him. Place your hand there, she said, pointing to the center. Jake hesitated. Why me? Because it was always you, she said, even before you made that joke. Jake placed his hand on the stone. Light exploded outward blue. Gold whitened. The door melted away. Inside was a small chamber. At the center, a crystal floated. In the air, spinning slowly, it showed images. Jake as a child. Jake saving Leary. Jake laughing under the glowing trees, and then Jake surrounded by thousands of Alari, standing like a leader. Jake stepped back, shocked. What is this? Leary looked at him, eyes wet. This place shows possible futures, she said, but only for the marked one. Jake turned to her, voice shaking. What does that even mean? Leary walked to the crystal, placing her hand near it. It means your path is tied to my people, she said. Maybe by accident. Or maybe by fate. Jake touched the crystal. It flashed again, showing something different. A war. A dark army, ships falling from the sky, and Leary, standing alone surrounded, crying out for help. The vision vanished. Jake stepped back. Heart pounding, that's what's coming, she said. My people will fall if you don't stand with us. Jake stared at her. Why me? Leary finally answered with something new. Because you're not just human, she said. You carry something. Lost a long time ago. Something that should have died with the stars. Before Jake could ask more, the crystal cracked just a little. The chamber shook. Leary grabbed his arm. They know you've awakened it, she said. We have. To leave the path behind them vanished, and a new door opened ahead. They ran through glowing corridors, the ship calling them back as they entered the ship. An alarm sounded again, but this time it wasn't just a signal. A voice echoed. Through the ship, deep and strange, not human, not Alari. Return him or be destroyed. Jake looked at Leary. Who is that? She looked at him with fear in her eyes for the first time. The ones who remember, she said, and the ones who want you gone. Cliffhanger ending. Outside the ship, a black shadow appeared in space, huge, silent, and alive, and it was coming straight for them. Asterisk, the shadow outside the ship didn't move like a ship. It didn't have wings or engines. It floated through space like a living storm, and it was watching. Jake stood near the window, heart pounding. What is that thing? He asked. Leary didn't answer right away. She stared at it with tight lips, her hands glowing faintly. It's not alive, but it's not dead either, she said. It's called a Watcher. Jake narrowed his eyes. Watcher of what? Leary turned to him. Of people like you, before Jake could speak again. The ship jerked violently. An invisible force pulled them away from the Spire planet. The Watcher was dragging them somewhere. Hold on, Leary said, gripping a glowing handle. Jake grabbed the wall, but the pressure in the room shifted. The lights flickered. Jake's ring began to burn on his finger, hot but not painful. His vision blurred. He saw flashes himself, but different. Wearing armor not made by humans, leading beings with glowing skin, and beside him Leary, dressed like a queen of stars, then nothing, silence. The ship stopped. They were somewhere dark, no stars around. Leary stood up slowly, eyes scanning. Jake rubbed his temples, dizzy. What happened? They tried to test you, Leary said. The Watchers want to know if you're still human. Jake looked at her, confused and angry. What are you talking about? I am human, she shook. Her head softly, not entirely anymore. He stepped back. What does that mean? She looked at him with sad eyes. Jake. The day you made the pinky promise, you did something ancient, something powerful. Jake laughed, nervous. It was a joke. Not to my people, she said to the Ilari. A soul promise. Binds to lives, and your words, your touch, your choice. It left a mark on me. Jake felt his chest tighten. So you trained. Because of me. She nodded, yes, but it's more than that now. She walked to the center of the room and touched a glowing panel. A soft light formed between them, a circle of energy. It shimmered like water, but buzzed like a machine. This is the bond, she said. If we complete it, we will be linked mind, body, spirit. You will understand everything. Jake stared at the energy ring, unsure. And if I don't? She looked away. Then we may both die. Jake stepped back again. I didn't ask for this, he said. I didn't want to be part of some prophecy or space magic. Leary looked hurt but nodded. I know, she said, but the danger is real, Jake. If we don't link, they will tear you apart just to keep you from becoming what you're meant to be. Which is what? He snapped. The end of their control, she whispered. Just then, alarms returned. A pulse wave hit the ship, a message. A cold voice filled the chamber. The human must surrender. The bond must not complete. Jake felt his head burn again, this time. It wasn't just visions. He heard voices in his mind, arguing, screaming, begging. Leary rushed to him. Placing her hands on his temples, the pain stopped instantly. His breath slowed. She looked into his eyes. I can protect you, she said, but only if you trust me. Jake stared at her glowing hands, at the strange circle in the room. What happens if we bond? He asked, voice low. You'll never be fully human again, she said, but you'll be something greater. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. I trust you, she smiled, then step inside the light. He walked forward, heart racing. The moment he entered the circle, a warmth spread through his chest. Memories not his own flowed into him, fights, promises, love, loss, stars being born, stars dying, and Leary, always there, always waiting. The light rose around them. The ship shook again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was power. Leary took his hand. You're ready now, she said. For what? He asked. The door behind them opened slowly. A group of tall, armored beings stood outside, weapons raised. Leary's eyes glowed with silver fire. Jake clenched his fist, and the ring shined like a sun. Cliffhanger ending. Leary whispered, now. We fight for everything, and the floor beneath them cracked open, revealing a battlefield floating between stars. The stars were on fire. Jake stood on a battlefield that didn't touch the ground. Floating stone platforms moved under his feet, spinning between stars. Below him, nothing. Above him, more ships than he could count, blinking like angry eyes. Leary stood beside him, her white hair glowing like lightning. Their bond was complete now. He could feel her thoughts, and she could feel his. They didn't need to speak to understand each other, at least. That's what he thought, suddenly. A pulse hit the air like a silent wave. The floating stones cracked and spun apart, strange. Beings tall, armored, in black landed in silence. Weapons raised, Jake raised his hand. Energy gathered in his palm, pure and hot. He didn't know how he was doing it, but the bond gave him control. Power flowed where fear used to live. He blasted the first attacker, sending it flying into the dark. Leary moved like a storm, her hands drawing silver arcs through space together. They fought without missing a beat. Then Jake heard it, a whisper inside his mind. Not Leary's voice, not his own. A third voice, cold and cruel. She's lying to you, Jake. Stopped moving. Blade passed his shoulder, missing by inches. He turned to Leary, who didn't notice his hesitation. She made you piece by piece, the voice said. Ask her about the day she lost you. Jake's heart pounded. He pushed the voice away and kept fighting, but the seed of doubt was already planted. When the last enemy fell, silence returned. Jake looked at Leary. She smiled at him, proud, but he didn't smile back. Leary, he said.
When did you first know about me being this?
She tilted her head. Since the temple, she said. When you opened the memory crystal. Jake narrowed his eyes. That's not what they said. Leary stiffened. Who? The voice in my head, Jake said. They told me you knew. Long before that you were preparing me for something. More Leary looked away, Jake. I wanted to tell you everything, she said. But you weren't ready. He stepped closer. Ready for what? A weapon? A tool? Her face dropped. No, not a weapon, she said softly. A key. Jake took a step back. What am I unlocking, Leary? She didn't answer, just stared at him with tearful eyes. I was told never to speak of it. She said, not until the bond was complete. Jake's voice grew sharp. So you used me? Leary's shoulders fell. No, I chose you, Jake, she said before the prophecy. Before the mission I chose you. He turned away, furious. Everything inside him felt broken. His trust, his purpose, his promise, all tangled in secrets then. Another ship appeared overhead, but this one was different. It was old, very old. Carved with human letters, half broken, rusted. Jake froze. That's Earth Tech, he whispered. Leary looked up and her face went pale. I didn't want you to see this yet, she said. The ship opened and a figure stepped out. An old man in a faded Earth uniform. His voice shook as he spoke. Jake Harlan. He said, you were reported dead over 15 years ago? Jake blinked. What? The man nodded. You were taken from the Alarian planet, he said. Not saved? Taken? Jake looked at Leary. Is this true? She didn't answer. Tears welled in her eyes. I had no choice, she whispered. Jake stepped back. Again, you knew I wasn't supposed to survive, he said. You rebuilt me. The ring on his finger flared with heat. His hand shook, not from power, but from betrayal. The man walked closer. She's one of the architects, he said. They rebuilt you to open the gate. Jake turned to Leary. His voice was low and full of pain. You should have let me die. Cliffhanger ending. The battlefield shook again, and far in the distance, a golden light appeared. The gate, whatever it was, had awakened, and Jake was the only one who could reach it. Jake sat alone inside the old Earth ship. The air smelled. Like dust and rust, everything was cold. No glowing walls, no floating lights, no Leary, just metal silence. In truth, he looked down at the ring on his finger. It was no longer shining, just dull silver, like the promise it carried behind him. The old officer spoke again. We searched for you for years, he said, but the Alari didn't want us to find you. Jake didn't answer. His eyes stared at the stars all his life. He thought he was just a kind man who made a joke to a child, but that joke had become a chain. You're not fully human anymore, the man said. You know that, right? Jake nodded slowly. I feel everything, he whispered. Memories that aren't mine. Dreams that speak. Stars that call my name. The officer stepped closer. You were changed for a purpose, he said, to open the gate. Jake finally turned. What is the gate? The man paused. It's not a place, he said. It's a beginning. A machine built by the first civilizations to restart the universe when it breaks. Jake stood up, shaking his head. You're telling me I'm some kind of key to reset reality? The man nodded. Yes, Jake laughed, cold and tired. And no one asked me if I wanted that before the officer could reply. A soft voice echoed through the ship because choice was never part of your design. Jake turned fast. Leary was standing in the doorway. No glowing powers now, no queen-like presence. Just Leary, quiet, small, and sad. I didn't mean to lie, she said. Jake's voice cracked. But you did. She stepped closer. I was a child when I met you, she said. But my people already knew your blood was different. They tested you, Jake said. Every time I laughed. Every time I helped youth, they watched me. Leary nodded. We thought you were just a carrier, she said. But the bond changed that. You're not just the key anymore. You're the door. Jake backed away from her, his voice hollow. Was any of it real? Leary's eyes welled with tears. I didn't know what love was when you made that joke, she said, but I do now, and it's the one thing that wasn't written in the stars. Jake looked at her, pain deep in his eyes. You trained your whole life for this, he said. You waited, became powerful, just to guide me to a machine. She shook her head. I became strong to protect you from the ones who wanted to use you, not to use you myself. A deep hum filled the ship outside. The Golden Gate was fully open, now spinning slowly. It looked like a hole in space. Itself, everything around it bent and shimmered. Jake stared at it. I don't want to be a god, he said. I just wanted to keep a promise to a little girl. Leary stepped beside him. And you did, she said. You gave her safety. Kindness, laughter. You gave me a reason to fight. Jake turned to her slowly. If I walk through that gate, what happens to me? She looked down. I don't know. She said no one ever came back. He looked out again. The stars seemed quiet, waiting. I want to believe you, he said, but everything feels like a trap. She nodded. I can't take away the lies, she said, but I can give you one last truth. Ash! She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small crystal. Inside was a glowing memory. Jake laughing under the trees. Leary beside him, smiling with joy. No. Prophecy. She whispered, no mission, just us. Jake took it gently, his hand shaking. I don't know what to believe anymore. She stepped back, her voice soft. Then believe in that moment, she said. That one moment when everything. It was a real cliffhanger ending. Behind them, the gate pulsed again, and a voice not human. Not Alari called from within. Jake Harlan, will you complete the promise? Jake stood at the edge of the Golden Gate. It wasn't made of metal or stone. It was made of memory, of time, of choices never taken. The gate whispered his name again, not like a command, but like a question. Will you finish what was started? Leary stood behind him, her hands folded. She didn't push him forward. She just waited. Jake looked back at her. His heart was heavy, but calm. She wasn't a mystery anymore. She wasn't just the alien girl he saved. She was the last true thing. In his life, I don't want to become a god, he said. I just want to stay human. Leary nodded slowly. Then choose like a human, she said, with your heart. Not with prophecy. Jake turned toward the gate. He felt everything now, stars being born, galaxies spinning, voices from forgotten races. They all waited for his decision. He remembered Earth, the old outpost, the broken toys he gave her. The joke he made, maybe I'll marry you when you grow up. He never meant it, but she did. A small laugh escaped him. Crazy how a joke can change the future. Leary smiled gently. It saved my life, she said. Jake stepped closer to her, and you saved mine. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Jake pulled off the ring, the light inside it. Flickered like a dying star. I won't use this to become something I'm not, he said, but I'll still go through that gate. Leary's eyes widened. Jake. He held up a hand. Not to become a god, he said, to lock it. She stepped closer. If you do that, you may never come back. Jake looked at the stars one last time. I don't need to come back, he said. Just make sure no one else suffers because of me. Leary grabbed his arm. You don't have to do this alone. Jake shook his head. You've done enough, he said softly. Let this be my promise kept. He kissed her forehead gently. Goodbye, Leary. She didn't stop him, but her tears glowed like silver. As he turned, Jake stepped into the gate. Light swallowed him whole. Inside, there was no pain. No sound, only truth. He saw the first stars. He saw time bend. He saw what the gate truly was, a restart button. A second chance for all things, but it was broken. And he was the only one who could fix it, by becoming the seal, not the key, not the door, but the lock. Jake smiled sadly. A human promise, he whispered, is something you don't break. Then silence, outside. The gate flickered once, then closed forever. Leary collapsed to her knees. The officer stepped forward. "He did it," he whispered. "The gate is sealed." Leary held the memory crystal in her hands. Jake's laughter echoed from it, not like a ghost, but like a spark. Years passed. Leary returned to her world. She built a temple not for gods, but for promises. At the center stood a statue, a human man, smiling, one hand outstretched. Pinky Ray's children came to hear the story of a joke that saved the stars, of a human who didn't want power, only to protect a friend. And somewhere in a place beyond time, a voice whispered in the dark, "I kept it." Final line narration, and the galaxy never forgot the human who kept a promise.